I just get
Hey, how you doing? This is John, and welcome to John's Long Box. Today I'm here with Fabrizio Aiello, the maniac behind Horace H. Hoover from Alterna Comics.
How's it going?
I'm pretty good. Bryan Bao was supposed to come in, but he's got this horrible monster called virus running around through his house right now. So so he's not coming in. But we should have a few guests. Speaking of guests, this is just Kevin Ryan.
Hello.
How you doing?
Oh, Kevin is one of my subscribers. We had a good talk the other day, so we'll make up for it. We might have other people popping in. A couple of people said they will be able to come in later. So this is our Friday the 13th. Ooh, scary. So I thought I'd ask you guys. We were going to originally do like a Halloween thing. So I was curious today on the way home, like, what do I want to talk about for Friday the 13th? And I was thinking, did you guys get dressed up for Halloween as a kid? Did you make your own costumes? Did you buy costumes?
Both.
Well,
I think I would start out like in September buying Ben Cooper costumes with a little rubber band around the back of the mask.
Oh, I hate it. And you stick your tongue through the little mouth.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Scratch up your tongue.
But then they would break in about a week, and by Halloween, I've been through 3 costumes, and my mother had to make one.
Yeah.
I don't think my parents ever made costumes. I was the youngest, so by the time things got to me, it was just like, we'll just give him a sheet or just send him out there with a bag and hopefully he gets candy.
How many kids in your family, Fabrizio?
4. So I have 3 older brothers.
Okay. All 4 boys. No girls to civilize you, huh?
No.
Yeah, I remember, like, as a real young kid, I'd get those. Was it Ben Cooper was the name of the company?
There were a couple different companies. There was Ben Cooper, Collegeville. You're asking me this off the top of my head.
Yeah. Well,
I think there were 3 companies that made
But
it.
I just remember in kindergarten, I had a Hulk costume. I wanted to be the Hulk, and it was this latex, plastic, whatever, sweat-inducing costume that you'd strap on, and it had those vinyl straps that would just tear off almost instantly on your back. So my mom would actually sew them shut because we were just going to rip them off after Halloween anyway. And then it was green. It was purple pants and like green sleeves, and then the picture of the Hulk. And I just remember, this isn't what the Hulk looks like. Like, I expected like drawn muscles or something like that, and then a plastic Hulk mask that you put the rubber band over, and it would instantly snap off.
Well, Ben Cooper, right after the Batman show came out, they got a deal with DC, and they made Hawkman, the Flash, Aquaman, and they actually had Aquaman in a mask. They had a Daredevil one that was Batman recolored red.
Okay.
And they had the Flash that had a logo on his forehead that said "The Flash" right on his forehead. It was a class outfit, I'll tell you.
They did that a lot with like comic book characters. If you remember the Robin Hood movie with Kevin Costner, they made action figures, and the who did what's his name play the Christian Slater? He was Will Scarlet. If you bought the Will Scarlet toy, the belt said a G because it was the Superpowers Green Arrow action figure just recolored.
Oh, yeah, sure, yeah. And by the way, hello, Fabrizio.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Well, Ben Cooper's, I didn't necessarily plan on talking about this, but you know how they got started.
What did you plan on talking about? You had a plan?
Well, I
don't have a plan.
I saw comics and monsters, so I studied up on monsters all afternoon.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
But Ben Cooper started in the 40s. Walt Disney wanted play suits made so the kids could run around the house as Mickey Mouse and whatnot. And Ben Cooper was the guy who made the costumes.
Those creepy, scary Mickey Mouse costumes?
No, well, just, whatever, just to wear around the house and pretend you're Mickey Mouse. And one more way for Disney to make money. This is when Walt actually walked the earth.
Yeah.
And so he went and contacted Ben Cooper, who made costumes for the Ziegfeld Follies. And Ben not only made money with Walt Disney, but he said, I'm going to make my own costumes. Now, you're going to love how this story ends. So he made a bunch of creepy costumes, including Witch, Ghost, Devil Man, the Wolf Man, and get this, 1953, Spider-Man.
Oh,
Now, the Spider-Man costume was orange, but it looked like the mask looked just like the Marvel character.
oh, wow.
And then years later,
He didn't prepare, but he knows all of this.
yeah, that's true. Well, I'll tell you what happened with that was that they would put out a catalog that would go out to stores, and they found this. I would imagine, I can only guess, that when Ditko or Kirby designed Spider-Man back in '62, they used that costume as a template to design the Spider-Man character. So the Marvel Spider-Man is actually based on the Ben Cooper costume.
What?
Okay.
Yep.
Blowing my mind.
You can look it up. I'm not sure how to share screens yet. I'm a little new to StreamYard, but you can certainly look this up. And then about 12 years ago, somebody walked into a comic shop in Massachusetts and said, "Have you ever seen one of these?" And they had the orange 1954 Spider-Man costume. And the owner of the store was John Cimino, who works a lot with Roy Thomas. He handles them at conventions. And the whole country covered this story on the national news. Oh, there's Tonic.
Yep.
And
Tonic,
so
I just sent you a link. Check your private messages on Twitter.
Yep. So that's how Spider-Man got designed. Martin Goodman called Ben Cooper and said, "I'll tell you what, I have this character Spider-Man. Hello." He said, "I won't sue you. You don't sue me. I don't make Halloween costumes. You don't make comic books." And Ben Cooper in 1964 made the first Marvel merchandised item with the official Spider-Man costume as a result.
Oh, cool.
Wow.
I wonder what you would have known about this had you prepared. Hey, Tonic Ball, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
So Tonic
you guys
Ball, I
doing?
don't know if you. I always just assume everybody knows each other. But Tonic Ball, this is Fabrizio Aiello, the creator of Horace H. Hoover.
Nice to meet you.
He's just Kevin Ryan. He's a subscriber of mine that we've been talking a lot. Guy should start his own YouTube channel. Just talking about meeting comic book celebrities.
Tonight I am Googum, son of Goom.
Kevin, can you give us so you've outsmarted us? Listen to this guy's voice. He sounds like he radio from the 40s.
What, me? Oh, yeah. Come on. although thank you I got called Gene Shepard in the last chat, and I've actually listened to Gene Shepard now. Yeah, he's terrific.
Yeah. He's the guy that created the Christmas Story and the narrator. So how's it? Hey, Tonic Ball, how you doing? Send me links to anything that you're promoting, and I'll put it in the description.
Yeah, mainly just my website.
I'm sorry?
Mainly just my website.
Okay. Tonic Comics, right?
I'll drop it in the thing, which is just toniccomics.com. So.
Okay. And Fabrizio, I already put Alterna Comics in the chat.
Thank you.
And I put your phone number and your address in the chat. So just sort of.
Hey, that's okay. Sure, you can put my phone number there. No, I used to sell Broadway tickets in Times Square, and I handed out my phone number to people from all over the planet. Sure, I have no problem with that. Go ahead.
Okay, so today we were going to do a Friday the 13th at Tonic. We were already talking about costumes. Did you dress up as a kid?
Yeah.
You dress up as an adult too.
I mean, quite a bit into it, but yeah, as a kid, of course, like a werewolf and Batman a lot. And then by the time I was like 14, it was 14 to like early 20s was the Crow.
I was gonna guess
Wow.
you struck me as a Crow guy.
Really into it, and it really what kind of made me jump ship from like the Batman and Ninja Turtles and stuff was the Crow, and and it's the easiest costume. I didn't do the whole leather jacket or nothing. I just wore my normal clothes and painted my face like the Crow.
Black t-shirt, black jeans, and put some makeup on your face. Yeah.
Boom, you're done.
You're either the Crow or you're one of the insane clown posse, depending upon how the makeup came out.
I was too old. I'm too old for that. That was like what the new kids were doing in like the 2000s or something.
I went to college in Albuquerque, and I had a friend named Tom, and Tom he had problems. He was just, you ever just meet somebody who's just lost? You know, he was just a poor lost kid, and like Tonic. Tom was the nicest guy in the world. He would do it, but he was slow, and people used to take advantage of him. But he got an apartment off campus, and he wanted to throw a party, and these skinheads came and they literally wrecked the apartment. They were running through walls, knocking things down, and then they jumped him and beat him up, like to the point his face was swollen like a pumpkin. And I'll never forget, it was Halloween. Like, he got beat up, and a couple of days later it was Halloween, and he dressed up as the Crow, but his face was all swollen. Oh my God, it was terrifying. And we were like, Tom, you look great. You look great. Yeah, you know, 2 black eyes. His nose was broken. He had bandages on it, dressed as the Crow. It wasn't going to dampen his spirits. He was just. I always wonder about him. You know,
did he track them down and kill them?
I don't know what he did. That would have been a better ending to the story. Yes, that's exactly what he did. Let's turn this.
Yeah.
You know, I remember as a kid, oddly enough, I don't remember my Halloween costumes too well. But when I was an adult, I went to a Salvation Army, and I got I found a pair of moon boots, black moon boots. And just on that, I said, oh, I'm going to turn this into a Halloween costume. I don't know what. And I wore a black turtleneck and black pants, and made out of took a Toy Biz, what do we call it, a backing card, and cut it out and made a bat logo, Velcroed that to my chest, put on a big long Dracula cape and a Batman mask, and then put socks under my shoulders. So by this point, in between the moon boots and the shoulders, I was about 6'8" and wide as a linebacker. And I went out to bars, and I ran into people I knew. I blacked out my eyes, because you have to do that with the Batman costume, or you look stupid. And I walked into bars, and people were. I had some kids that I ran into that I knew, and they turned to their mothers. They said, "Mom, that's the real Batman." And I, hello, I'm Batman. And I went into bars, and people were like, "Do I know you?" And I'm like, "Yes,
what were
I'm
kids
Batman."
doing in bars, though? Where do you live?
No. This is before. This is before I went out to the clubs, but I got to impress some kids who actually thought I was Batman.
Well, this will be my 3rd Halloween in this house, but my first Halloween, I wasn't really prepared, and I didn't think it was going to be a big deal. We just had a line of kids at the door, and it was really sweet. There's a couple of houses of Mexicans nearby, and these little girls, they all dressed up, and they were talking to me in Spanish. Like, they must have been like 3 or 4 years old. I didn't know what they were saying, but they were just so cute and polite. And I was like, oh, I felt bad. I was like, I'm going to dress up for Halloween. So the second year, I got this big elaborate Odin costume. I got a spear over here. I got this winged hat, an eye patch. I got these robes and a cape with like a furry thing, you know, everything but boots. I just didn't get boots. And I sat in my garage with a big bowl of candy, and nobody came to the door. That's my wife. I was so sad. I'm like, oh man, what did I scare people, or is it like, you know, what's, you know? So I'm sitting in my garage in an Odin costume eating Reese's peanut butter cups for a couple of hours.
Yeah, for my daughter's like 10th birthday or something like that. For some reason, I went and rented a Spider-Man costume. I don't know why I rented it. It don't make sense because it's not elaborate, right? It's just like a bodysuit thing. Anyways, I got the Spider-Man costume, and all the little kids think you're the real person, you know, they're just like hyped. I was like, man, this is like, I would have loved to do that. Like, if I lived in a more populated place, like do that, like entertain at birthday parties, because it's freaking awesome to dress up like a superhero, and like to them, you're it.
Yeah, to a little kid, you are Spider. Yeah, my friend Dennis, when I was working at pizzeria, we were both delivering pizza. My friend Dennis just started working out. You could tell maybe he was juicy because he had that jaw, but he was ripped. So the owner of the pizzeria was just like, "It's my son's birthday. Will you dress up as Batman? I'll get you a Batman costume." And he was like, "Yeah, all right." You know, so he dressed up and he was Batman, and he was just like, John. All the mothers were giving me their phone number. They didn't even know what.
I'm not actually a billionaire.
So you guys have a lot of cool costumes. My friend growing up, his sister owned a costume shop.
Oh wow!
And one day we're like, you know what? We have our pick of the shop. These are like legit top to bottom costumes. So I got a full body chicken costume, like the whole thing, and my buddy got a gorilla. So we were like, well, let's just walk around town for a bit. This was actually, I think, the day before Halloween or something. It wasn't on Halloween. So let's just walk around the neighborhood as a chicken and a gorilla for a bit. And I'm like, you know what? Let's stop by my house because I didn't tell my parents or my brothers or anything what I was doing. So I knock on the door. My brother answers the door and he just sees a chicken and a gorilla. And I don't say anything. So
which is coming out soon on Alterna Comics, Chicken and Gorilla.
so I storm into the kitchen and I start slapping him around. He has no idea that who I am. As far as he knows, a chicken just accosted him. Out of
Was he
the
dressed
blue.
as Peter Griffin?
And I was just going to say, 30 years later, the Family Guy has a skit. And I'm like, wait a minute. I was the chicken. I just randomly. But I don't have any Batman stories or cool stories.
Believe it or not, my Odin Halloween. Oh, go ahead, Kevin.
I was just going to say, I went to a friend of mine's house. He lived in this little town, like Huntington, Vermont. There's like one main road that runs through town. And they had a rubber monster mask or something. So I put it on and I found a big straw hat and a pair of work gloves from the garden. And I went and I sat on the front porch in a chair. And the kids would come up trick-or-treating. Their parents would be walking them along. And they'd come up to the house and I wouldn't move a muscle.
Yep, I've done that.
They come up to the door, they get their candy, and I still wouldn't move. I had a couple of kids come up and kick me in the leg. Still wouldn't move. And then as they were leaving, as they walked down the walk, I jump up and yell, "Happy Halloween!" They love it.
I was gonna say that was my Odin last year wasn't even the saddest Halloween I ever had. The saddest Halloween I ever had was when I moved to Albuquerque. I got a job in the washing dishes in the cafeteria, and I'd get paid like $65 a week. But I was living my first semester there. I had a dorm. $65 a week was like enough to keep you from, being depressed because you couldn't do anything. Like you go get a comic book, go get something. So I was like, oh wow, Halloween's coming up. I'm in college. I want to dress up. So there's a costume shop down the road from Albuquerque, from the University of New Mexico where I went. So I walk in, and it's like a theater place. So these are like nice costumes. And I got an Elvis. I had a wig. I had the big, Vegas Elvis with the tassels and everything like that, and big boots and everything. And I'll never forget, it cost me $65. So I spent the week's pay, got this costume, and then I walking around, and I didn't even know anybody. I wasn't invited to a party. I was just a guy dressed up as Elvis walking around campus.
You would think they would invite you to a party.
I know. I would invite the Elvis guy, and I'm like, thank you very much. Talking to people in the street, walking around. I was like, all right, cool. Week's pay. And
you could have started a new career as an impersonator.
Someone, I think it was Fabrizio. You mentioned the gorilla suit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Has anyone here ever heard of Bob Burns?
No.
Okay. Anybody remember an old show called The Ghostbusters with Forrest Tucker and Larry Storch?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And they were Spencer, Davis. No, it was Spencer, Tracy, and Kong. And Tracy was the gorilla. Well, that was Bob Burns. Bob Burns was a.
I bet you if Bryan was here, he would have known.
Yeah. Bob Burns was a technical assistant on a bunch of shows all through the 60s. And if you needed anybody to play the gorilla in a TV show, you called Bob because he owned the outfit.
I got to message Bryan right now and ask him if he knows. Bryan just did a comic book called the Gorilla Suit Maniac.
Okay. Well, as Bob got older, because Bob knew everybody, and he's done interviews where he talks about hanging out with Glenn Strange and hanging out with Lon Chaney Jr. and all kinds of people. But eventually he started opening up his house on Halloween, and his friends would chip in. And they would set up like this elaborate jungle, and this guy in a pith helmet would walk you through it and be like, beware. And then all of a sudden the gorilla would pop out of the woods and attack you. But he would do this every year. He would do Creature from the Black Lagoon. He would do Aliens. And Ridley Scott lent him the alien props so they could do the aliens at the house.
That is cool.
And this guy's still around. and he does conventions and stuff. And I remember I did get a chance to meet Larry Storch, and we talked about the Joker and Batman. We talked about Ghostbusters, and I asked him. I said, "Do you ever see Bob Burns anymore?" And Larry looks at me and he says, "Well, the problem with Bob Burns is that when he takes off the gorilla mask, I don't know what he looks like, so I don't know if I've seen him."
I got two responses to that. First, I'll go with the sillier responses. My first girlfriend in 9th grade had an irrational fear of Larry Storch, and and she was like, her little sister was teasing her, and she was like, stop it. I'm like, what's this all about? She's like, I don't know. I don't want to bring it up. And then finally, the little sister's like, she's scared of Larry Storch. So it was like the kind of thing, 9th grade. So what were we, 14, 15 years old? You're not really little kids. And all you had to do was say F Troop or Larry Storch to her, and she would like visibly freak out.
Really?
Wow.
My second response is, I worked at a flower shop. And it wasn't just flowers, but they sold like everything for like gardens, and you could rent tractors and everything like that. So it was a big warehouse of a place, and they did this to all the new people. And I of course I didn't know I was the new person. So they're like, "Hey John, go up into the attic, and I need you to get the orange box. It's filled with whatever." And I was like, "All right." And it's kind of scary because you're going up to the attic, the wooden stairs lit by lights, and it's just a row of lights. So it's shadows everywhere, and you're like, you can't say no to the boss, so you're walking around, you feel like you're gonna poop your pants, and you're just waiting, and you're looking for an orange box, and then one of the brothers jumps out in a full gorilla costume, and everybody else jumps out from the boxes. I like screamed like a little girl. They're like, "Yeah, we got you." They did that to all the new employees. They have a gorilla costume just for scaring people.
Man,
just for scaring people. Nice. No, Larry was a super nice guy, and I actually got a chance to talk to him a couple times.
Next time you talk to him, tell him Eva's scared of him.
You know what? He passed away. Maybe about a year and a half ago. But you know who I was scared of as a little kid? This is neither really a Halloween story nor comic books, but bear with me. Was the mailman from Mr. Rogers. I used to have nightmares that he would come and grab me out of our garage. And then finally I went to a convention, and who's there? The mailman from Mr. Rogers, and we wound up hanging out.
If you want to bring up Mr. Rogers and terror, the king and queen.
Really?
Oh my God. And I can't be the only one. Those puppets.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Those were terrifying.
The lady in the little Ferris wheel thing with the giant red nose.
Lady Elaine Fairchild, yeah.
She was like nightmare fuel.
Okay.
Terrified me as a kid.
Yeah.
All right. Somebody on the panel backs me up here. That was the scariest freaking thing. I would watch it like, just the voice.
Yeah.
Hey there, Toots.
The king, whatever the king's name was.
And really,
you know what the king's name was? It was Friday the 13th.
Really?
Yeah, King Friday the 13th. Yes.
Well, there you go. We're on topic.
That's funny.
It was on topic.
Sorry.
Around.
No, but I go ahead, Tonic.
Oh, I remembered a story of me dressing up as a kid. So I'm what's the word? Obsessive about things, even as a little kid. Probably on the spectrum type situation.
I think all comic book collectors are.
Yeah. So I wanted to be Dracula, and so my mom bought me the little, the little plastic cape and stuff. And
please tell me you got pictures.
No, I got one of me as Spider-Man, but when I was like 5, and so it was the 80s, so it came in a box with like a painted Dracula on it. I think it was a cape and a few other things. Anyways, and on it, his fingernails were like red, but I think it was because like blood on them or something, and he's going like this. Well, I was probably 3 or 4, and I was like, I have to have red nails like the Dracula on that box.
I'm with you on that one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So so mom goes, okay, fine, and she paints my nails, but just like paints them red, like it's of course the what she paints her fingernails with.
Right.
So it
Yeah.
was more of a maroonish,
Yeah.
gloss thing. So, anyways, she paints my fingernails, and this was all for my brother, who's 5 years older than me. So maybe he was in third or fourth grade or something. They were having a Halloween party, and she was going to bring cookies and stuff, and she had to bring me. Uh, and so I'm dressed up like Dracula, the face paint and all that stuff, and I have my fingernails painted red. And I just remembered all the kids going, why does that little kid have painted fingernails like a woman, right? But then all the girls were
Because
like,
they don't
oh,
understand art.
right. All the girls were like, "Oh, his little fingernails are painted, right?" And I was like, "Aha, you nerds over there with your unpainted fingernails. Here, I'm getting all the attention, and I'm 3 or 4, and I got more game than them."
Yeah.
But
It's
so
all about the bling.
that's right.
And,
But
and
when you were
speaking of which, just so you know, you see that bed back there? Tonic Bowl uses the same camera and that same bed for his OnlyFans site.
Yes, this
excellent,
is
yeah.
my
Speaking about
OnlyFans
scary things,
studio.
Do you paint your nails on OnlyFans? Is that your?
Ooh.
Is that the?
Yeah, that's all I do. My toenails. People freak out over the feet.
That you may have discovered a niche for yourself here. I think.
Hey, money's money,
yeah, whatever pays the bills, right? I don't want to be a
Yeah.
construction worker anymore.
Comics
Chinese-
don't make all that much money. I don't know if anybody knows this.
It's funny because my wife always jokes around, like, we'll be laying in bed looking. She's like, man, you have pretty feet. She goes, if we were to do a foot site, you would make more money than me.
Push comes to shove,
Yeah.
No, I got monkey feet. Like my toes are as long as my fingers. Hey, maybe there's an audience for that, but it would be
Monkeyfoot.com. There you go. I'll
right,
put
even
that.
weirder
I'll
than
put
the
that
foot guys.
There you go.
Were we? I mean, as far as Halloween and comic books, were we all also into monster movies?
Oh
Is
yeah,
that a,
I am.
yeah.
What,
that was a thing for everybody?
Monster
honest-
movies. I had an older brother. Well, I still have an older brother he's into horror movies the way I'm into comic books. I would love to see him and Bryan get together and talk monster movies. But when I was a little kid, he would wake me up and be like, John, come on, we're going to watch this. And he would tell me the name of some horror movie. And I'm like, oh, okay, it's 1:00 in the morning. I'm a little kid. And I was like, oh, my brother's so cool. We're sitting down in the basement, sitting close to the TV because we can't let mom and dad know that we're awake watching TV. And it wasn't until like 6 months later when I realized he was just too scared to watch him by himself,
Hey, every year when The Wizard of Oz came on, my mother would have to set up an intercom that went upstairs because whenever the witch was on, we could call my mother down there because my sister and I were freaking out.
Oh,
Mom, it's the witch!
The monkeys scared me, but then I grew to love the monkeys.
Wait, the Monkeys television show scared you?
No, the flying monkeys.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, they were pretty creepy, but I think it was intentional, Like,
yeah. That's the best. Well, that's the best kind of children's. I say this all the time. When you don't pander to kids, when you make your monkeys scary, and you make your monsters scary, like, again, I always go back to like Empire Strikes Back and Star Wars that were made for kids. I remember kids screaming when that ice creature attacked Luke and jumped out, and and Luke cut the arm off. And remember, they cut the guy's arm off in the cantina. Little kids can handle scary things. I think today we're being a little too soft with what could scare kids.
Yeah, there's a difference between like the cool uncle and your second grade teacher, right? So like 80s and 90s, a lot of children's entertainment was made by cool uncles where they're like, yeah, don't tell your mom, right? Like Image Comics' entire like idea was don't tell your mom, but here's a lady in a
comics
bikini.
You're gonna need the flashlight under the covers with, like,
Exactly, right? It was they were the cool uncle where it's not too far, but they're showing you things that your mom wouldn't want you to see, and that was most of children's entertainment, and then the second grade teacher took over, and it's not fun anymore. And people are like, why isn't it fun? It's like, because being bad is fun. Doing things you're not supposed to, that's really the definition of fun. And I don't promote my comic for kids. It's a hard PG-13 and then sometimes an R.
Yeah.
And so I don't promote it to kids.
Well, tell people what the name of your comic is.
Oh,
I
yeah.
always read every video as if it's people's first video.
My comic is called Saving the World, and it's a hybrid of late 90s black and white underground comics and, superhero crap. And so, but at Comic Cons, all types of things, little kids come up like constantly. And so I tell the parents, this isn't really, flip through it.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at the cover and are okay, it's probably, I guess, fine. I ain't judging whatever, right? But amazing.
$7 a buck.
Right. And like at Comic Cons, definitely. And this is okay. I'll sum this up, but it's a big, what's happening in the comic book industry. I learned while at a Comic Con. So I was at a Comic Con, and if you're deciding what comics you're going to make at a Comic Con, you will make exactly what mainstream is making right now. Those are the people there, overwhelmingly. Like, that's what they're interested in. These are the things, like all the stuff that comic fans go angry about the changes and all that makes total sense if you're at a comic book convention.
I'll tell you this, I don't go to conventions anymore because I can't stand them.
Right. Well,
I'm a guy, like, at the height of my comic collection, I'm sure Kevin could back me up. Probably did the same thing. I was spending $400 a month on comics.
Yeah. Well, see, and that's the paradox, is there are people who go to these type events. They'll always be at these events. They love Comic Cons, but they're different than the actual reader base. So a lot of comic creators survive solely by going to comic book conventions, and that's where they make up a lot of their income. So, like, their entire year is just constant Comic Con, seeing the exact same people over and over. I get it. I get why they think.
That must be why they think, like, oh, we're going to get Richard C. Meyer banned from a comic convention. They think that's devastating. Meanwhile,
it's all they see.
I care less about going to a comic convention.
Because to them, I could see them going, how could you not come away with this? Like, how could this not be the takeaway? It's all I see in this fandom. And it's because, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of readers, and cosplayers don't necessarily buy comics. And most superhero fans clearly don't. I mean, the comics don't sell enough to say that it's movies and I mean, you don't need.
What you were saying about that is, my wife and I used to go to New York Comic Con every year, and we made like a big day of it. It was like a date day. We'd take the train into Manhattan. We'd walk down to the Javits Center. We would get some comics. She would love to meet the old timers. Like we met Carmine Infantino. I think it was his last comic. We just sat and talked to him. And there's nobody else talking to this freaking legend. And my wife and I talking to him. And then we would buy a bunch of comics, and it was great because it was like comic book con. That when we went, she never bugged me about money or anything like that. Like, I could, how much did you spend? Oh, okay. You know what I mean? It was just
Comic
Con that happened to it. And then we would go to a diner or go to a restaurant afterwards. We made a big, and then I'll never forget, my niece was 19 years old. She's like, oh, Uncle John, I'm going to Comic Con this weekend. I'm going to dress up as Harley Quinn. And I was just like, oh, I'm not going anymore. I didn't say that to her. But I was just like, oh, really? What comics do you like? She's like, well, I like Harley Quinn. I'm like, okay, that's what Comic Con is now. The younger kids just go because it's a cool, I guess, fun thing to do, but it didn't count. And I do know, because I was asking the last couple of times I went, I was asking the vendors, and every one of them said that they were getting pissed off because they were spending so much money, like $5,000 for the weekend, and not selling any comics. He goes, all these people that they're dressing up like Batwoman, and they're dressing up like Harley Quinn, and I'm sure this year they were all dressed up like Barbie and Wednesday, but they're not buying comics.
Yeah. Now, my past few I've gone to, it's almost entirely anime and manga and stuff. They go crazy over that still, and that
Yeah,
is really their thing. But then, then movies. So, like Harley Quinn, of course, is because of movies and cartoons, uh, not
yeah,
because
they're
of any
all
of
wearing the
her.
Daddy's Little Monster
Right, right.
costume, not
Yeah.
the actual
And
Harley Quinn
to be
costume.
fair, she come from the cartoons, so whatever. And so, but yeah, so there's this disconnection to where and I forgot some guy he said he'd mentioned that comics have just disconnected. And now I'm not even one that says, "Oh, this can totally be fixed." Sometimes you're not the cool guy, and that's exactly what's kind of
Oh, look at
happening.
me! Look, I got Captain America, Shield, Green Lantern thing. I'm totally the cool guy.
Super cool. But if we were, if you're a
I see me at
Japanese
work every
creator
day.
right now, you're the coolest freaking person on the planet. You're the Todd McFarlane. Like, you ever watch the Spawn cartoon on HBO, and it opens and it's like this old, like, concrete, um almost like an airplane hangar that's empty with just a desk in the middle and a guy hunched over, and it shows him painting and all drawing, inking his comic and stuff, and then it spins around and it's Todd McFarlane. He's like, "Hi, what if you had to make a deal with the devil?" Right? That was the peak of those image guys, rock and rolls, like,
Yeah,
uh, deal. That was like, manga creators today. When you're
mega
at the
creators are
top,
rock stars now. Like
right,
they can't go to the supermarket. What do they call
right,
them? Mangakas?
right. Every dog has his day, and superhero comic. The mainstream industry had their day in the '90s, and now it's waned because. And I think someone brought. I feel like Didio or somebody mentioned this. Um, your kids are not going to like the comics you like. They might like comics.
Right.
They're not going to like their dad or their big brother's their characters.
Yeah, I remember my father sat me down. We were going to watch Marx Brothers movies, and I must have been like 10, 11 years old. And he's like, "They're so funny." After about 10 minutes, I'm like, "Dad, can I go outside?" He just looked so. I feel bad now. My
Right.
dad's gone. And I would
Yeah.
give anything to sit and watch a Marx Brothers movie with him. You know what I mean?
Right.
But you know,
Yeah,
like
my dad.
like if I had kids, like they would probably be playing hockey. And I'm dragged to hockey games.
Right.
I
With
couldn't
my
think of worse torture.
with my dad is Bonanza and Gunsmoke.
Yeah, I watched
And
all the westerns with my grandpa because my dad liked all the westerns and his dad liked all the westerns. So I guess it was
yeah,
just now I like westerns, but as a kid, unless they had
right.
I was
monsters.
just I was just gonna say, I think when in your life you look at something, changes your view of it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if you don't pander to kids with a comic book, and you make it adult, then you can enjoy that comic when you're 5, 15, 20, 30, 45 years old.
Well,
Right.
perfect example is I reread the Death of Phoenix leading up to Hellfire Club and everything. The Hellfire Club was just a group of bad guys when I was a kid. Now as an adult, I'm like, these were like Epstein and Bryan, whatever his name is, Jeffrey Epstein's just like blackmail sex clubs, and what they would do to Jean Grey without saying it, like making her dress up like a dominatrix and like hunt other humans to death in the dream. I was like, oh my god, like I didn't get that as a kid.
Oh,
And
John, do you know who the Hellfire Club is supposed to be?
yeah, it's supposed to be like the original. I could name them all too, and now I can't. I was actually doing research for a video, and my addled mind. But yeah, go ahead.
Oh, what Sebastian Shaw is Robert Shaw from The
Right,
Sting and Jaws, and
right.
then one of them is Donald Sutherland.
Donald Sutherland is the guy with the robot arm.
Yep,
Yeah,
and then the other guy is this guy Wingard, who has played a spy in England.
right.
So,
He actually played the leader of the Hellfire Club in the TV show The Avengers. That's
Yep.
that episode of The Avengers with Emma Peel is where they got the idea of the Hellfire Club, and the actor's name is Wingard, and he was the leader. And the fat guy who could control gravity was Orson Welles.
Okay.
That's who they were all based on.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't get that as a kid, but that's a perfect example of what you're saying. They didn't. Even Stan Lee, when he created the X-Men, he wanted to call them the mutants. Back in 1962, 63, I forget when, and the boss Goodman said, "No, you can't. Nobody knows what a mutant is." And Stan Lee goes, "Kids will look it up. They're not dumb." You know.
And of course, Professor Xavier was Yul Brynner from The King and I.
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you take a look at him, but I think that it's a little bit different than what Tonic was saying. Whatever is going to be popular at a given time is what's in the culture. So what's in the movies, what is in the what word am I looking for? What's in the zeitgeist?
Zeitgeist. Yeah, I love that word.
So I don't blame the kids, but you can make comics for that. We just don't. Everything in DC and Marvel is superheroes.
Yeah, I wouldn't say even blame because, people enjoy what they want, and I think that, and kind of like John said earlier, later he liked Westerns, and my daughter, she did not like superhero movies or comics or nothing. And, because I was like, okay, she has two parents that are, into Marilyn Manson and Korn and Nirvana and all these things, and into like R. Crumb. How the hell is she going to rebel, right?
Right. She's into ballet and opera.
Right. She was like listening to like Britney Spears and like pop music stuff. The only thing I don't like, right? And I go, oh my God. But she's as crazy as I am, so she is drawing like these morbid, twisted people.
Oh, she has artistic talent?
Yeah. But
does your wife draw?
She draws a little bit. She's more into writing.
Okay.
So
you got two creative parents. That's cool.
Yeah, she's writing that Red Sirens comic that funded a little while ago. And but then my daughter grows up and she's listening to Marilyn Manson and Korn and stuff. So yeah, it's in your teens, you don't want to just consume what your parents consume.
Well, like I said, I have two older brothers. My two older brothers, they were into the Rolling Stones. So I hated the Rolling Stones, not just because I wanted to be my own person. You know what I mean? Like that's their thing. So I got into Clash and the Sex Pistols, anything but classic rock. Now, oh my God, like if I feel like putting on music, I'm putting on Beatles, Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, and that's even old for me. That's like, I laugh now. Kids today listen to Led Zeppelin. It's like me growing up listening to Frank Sinatra.
Right.
I had no older brothers or sisters. I was the oldest, but I had one younger sister.
Okay.
But my parents had absolutely no interest in anything weird, esoteric, horror related, nothing. I found out my father did a little bit, but I had to go hunt all this stuff down myself. So I hunted, I had a very different experience with the Marx Brothers. I watched them when I was homesick from school in a movie. I thought they were,
now I like them.
Incredible.
At 10 years old in the 90s, or the 80s rather, it's a different story.
No, I was about 6 or 7, and it was in the 70s, and I caught him on an old noon movie. But all the old monsters, Frankenstein, Dracula, the superheroes, that was all me.
I've always loved the classic monsters, Universal monsters.
The only thing I'll give my father credit for in turning me on to something is my father doing the opening of The Shadow for me. And he'd come, he'd be like, who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The Shadow knows.
A funny thing about that is my father and I had a lifelong joke that he would do, and then he handed it off to me, is whenever we went to a funeral, they have a book, you write down your name and address, to get they would mail you a card later on. So he would write his name, his address, and then underneath it, he would write Lamont Cranston. And then for the address, he'd be The Shadow Knows. It was just a stupid joke that he put in every funeral we went. And then, I was like, I'm going to do it. So the funny thing is a coworker died, and I went to the funeral, and I went to the wrong funeral parlor. I just got the address wrong. I walked in, and I'm like, everybody here is Jewish, and my partner was an Irish Catholic, but so I'm just sitting there and I'm like, okay, so he knows a lot of Jewish people, and I realize I'm in the wrong funeral. So I already wrote my name, I already wrote Lamont Cranston and everything.
Awesome.
So a couple months later, I got a nice card written in Hebrew.
That is great.
And by the way, you know what it turned out to be? Do any of you guys listen to The Shadow?
I used to.
I have.
Yeah.
Yep. The best line in the show that nobody talks about is whenever he meets the bad guy says, "But the Shadow, I can't see you," and Cranston says, "I'm standing right beside you." That is so yeah, I think I developed a memory for things that came along many years before me, and all of this could be adapted into comic books. And I think Tonic makes a good point: is that being bad is fun, being a little bit outside of the normal. That's why the monsters and the superheroes and the gods of legend and lore, engaged in great sagas of daring do. That's what gets it for me, man.
What you said about being bad, I was in college. I was thinking about becoming a teacher, and I eventually did become a teacher. So I was working in a preschool. So here we had my class was kids that were out of diapers. And I didn't want to deal with diapers. That's a special kind of teacher. So my kids were fresh kids out of the real. I don't know, 3 or 4 years old kids. They were the cutest kids in the world. And, they were all happy because they had a boy teacher. I'd climb trees with them and everything like that. But every year, I forget what holiday it was, but Kathy, my co-teacher, she would dress up like a witch, but it wasn't Halloween. It was some other day. And she would let the kids do anything that they wanted wrong. Like, today you're not going to get in trouble. Do whatever you want wrong, but you can't hurt other kids, and you'd see them like, putting toys on the wrong shelf and looking, and like by the end of the day they were like, and they loved it, and then it was like the next day we would clean up the room and everything, and they would ask for it, like, can we do that? If you guys are good, we'll do whatever bad. I forget what she called it. She would come in with the witch's cap on. Oh my God, it was so funny because the kids would behave just to have that one day where they
for the purge.
It was cute. Yeah, it was like the purge for 4-year-olds, but it was cute what little kids thought was wrong. You know what I mean?
Right. I got very lucky. When I was about 7, my mother put my sister and I in the summer drama program, and the instructor was this fellow named John Kuhn, and he was probably I was a little kid, so John was probably about 25, and I remember talking to John brought up something about comic books. John started reciting the Green Lantern Oath. Oh, an adult that knew the Green Lantern Oath. And then he started bringing in his copies of Eerie and Creepy magazine, these Jim Warren magazines, and letting me read them because my mother wouldn't let me anywhere near Warren magazines.
Because those were on there was a cigar place that had magazines that would have like Rampaging Hulk and Savage Sword of Conan, Creepy and Eerie, and then Playboys and Hustlers were all on the same shelf. So I couldn't read those comics. So I'm actually reading Eerie and Creepy for the first time, and you know what? I'm kind of glad because now I appreciate all that wonderful art.
Well, I was born in 81, so
you were born in 81.
Yeah. So I
feel like I shouldn't even be allowed to talk to you.
Right. I'm sorry, Tonic. We need to see an ID, please.
I know. I'm only 42. And so
I can't believe 81 is 42 years ago.
I know.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And there's no, so I didn't start reading comics till 87 or something, 85, somewhere. And so there was no horror comics. Like pretty much my entire life, there was never really horror comics because
horror comics were over by then, I think.
Yep. Heavy metal, but that was sci-fi more, but they had the occasional thing. But that was about it. And really, all diversity of genre was dead by when I got into it. And so it was
sci-fi, and then there was superheroes, pretty much.
Right. And so, which, I see that people see things and they think that, man, I had a great example of this, and we'll see if I remember it. But it's that just because you can put 2 and 2 together doesn't mean that the answer is correct. And, I see that, like, I went to the comic book store today, and DC had all their horror versions of their superhero comics. So, like, Night of Terror or something like that. And they tried to do the romance thing, like the romance comics. And because some collectors and people on social media started talking about. I think when there was a little talk about Jack Kirby, and when he did romance comics, and he actually got paid more to do his romance comics than he did create the Marvel universe.
Wow.
And it was actually, people go, oh, that was everything, him at Marvel. For him, it was his career had ended, and now he had to work on superhero comics. And I looked it up, the amount he was getting paid for romance novels, because they were selling in the millions. Every month, not like a freak number one. This was just bam, bam. These guys were getting paid something that.
I was talking to Chuck Dixon about that romance comics were selling at phenomenal rates, and then all of a sudden they were gone. And Chuck Dixon says that's because those guys aged out,
Right.
and then the next generation of fanboys wanted to work in comics, but they wanted to do superheroes.
Right,
they were,
right.
So they just said, no, we don't want to do. I'll take Chuck Dixon's word for it.
Right. Which, if I don't know if you've read it, he did a comic. It was probably a year or two ago. Man, I wish I remember the name. It's about a kid and he's trying to get he finds online this like recipe to make yourself a superhero. And he's that one right there, Suprema. Yeah. Man, that is freaking good. It is so freaking good.
Yeah, he finds like a secret website that tells you a technique to become a superhero.
Right.
And I forget, I didn't read it yet, but he like leaves to go do something and his sister checks it out.
Right.
Superpowers.
His bigger sister.
Can't be replicated.
Right.
So now he has to be her mentor, but she's not interested. She's interested in boys and fingernail polish, not being a superhero.
Yeah, and it's, there's a good comic book idea helps, but really it's the execution. You could have the worst idea on the planet and execute amazing.
Any idea he can make it to a good comic.
Yeah. Which arguably maybe that's almost all comics, right? Are terrible ideas executed in a really fun way.
Oh, well, Tonic, I was joking around in a live chat. I said, let's make the worst idea for. Somebody said, let's make the worst comic. And I said, oh yeah, how about a comic book collector who has to leave his parents' basement? And then he messaged me, said that's a great idea. So I sent Tonic a script.
It's good.
idea.
I think it's kind of the opposite. We touched on this the other night, that I was reading some Tales to Astonish stuff, and it was terrible. The idea was great, but it was the submariner's search for the Trident of Neptune, and it was just one monster battle after the next.
I remember those comics. They were slag. Those old Tales to Astonish.
Or look at Deathlock. Great character, one amazing character.
I just read those like a year or two ago. Those were tough to get through.
If you try to read them, it's like, oh god. But you look at it and you go, this character should be awesome.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's all execution. So you could have the worst idea ever and great execution and make a great comic.
Well,
but you reverse it don't work. No idea is good enough to make a comic good.
No idea is intrinsically good. Well, I'll take that back. Some ideas are just awesome, but it takes talent. I mean, how many great movies did you see the trailer to? Like, that is a freaking awesome idea, and then you go see the movie and it's just awful. That's
Prometheus.
The job. Sorry,
Prometheus. So Prometheus is everything I've ever thought about in my head, right? And it
was just dull.
Yeah, it was the film about it, and I was like, this is it for me. This is the peak. And I was like, that is one of the worst movies I've ever seen about the coolest ideas ever. Just the execution. You get
so disappointed when a movie comes out that is just, oh man, this is going to be so good,
Even the guys at Marvel when we were kids, the character of Werewolf by Night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that Marvel was looking at this and going, okay, we got a Frankenstein, we got a Dracula, let's make a werewolf comic. But even they weren't taking it seriously. Does anybody know what the character's civilian identity is? Jack Russell, as in the terrier.
Yeah.
A little cute dog. They weren't even.
But it had wonderful Mike Plug artwork.
And that's what made it click was the
Oh my
execution.
God, that artwork was so good.
It was appropriate for what they were doing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say good. Plug was quite rough in a lot of ways,
Oh, I love Plug. He
but it worked.
didn't fit in Marvel, but he fit Werewolf by Night.
Yeah.
Like if Plug was drawing the Fantastic Four, you'd be like, what is this? But like, I think he could have pulled off Man Thing. He could have pulled off. He obviously pulled off Werewolf by Night. Plug would be good for Howard Chase Hoover.
If you look at Gene Colan on, if you look at Gene Colan on like Daredevil or Iron Man, it's not quite there. But then you put Gene Colan on Tomb of Dracula or Night Force, boom.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the storytelling, I know this is blasphemy, but some of the panels are hard to read. Like the actual storytelling in Tomb of Dracula. Tomb of Dracula.
Well, even Marv Wolfman will tell you that that was like editorial decree to make that comic, you know. And Gene Cole had lobbied for that comic, and Marv Wolfman said it took him 15 issues before he figured out what he wanted to do with it. If you read the first 15 issues, there's almost a different cast of characters. It's like an anthology stories or whatever, episodic, different characters, and then they finally came up with the cast of characters, and it started to get good. But yeah, read the first 15. I remember bringing those to work. And I was sitting at work reading Tomb of Dracula comics going, this just sucks.
Yeah, you know, Jimmy Palmiotti was talking on your show. I was like, where did he say that? It's on your show. Talking about, you know, storytelling. And it is like, if you read Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mirage Studios, Eastman and Laird and stuff, the art from the beginning wasn't the most polished stuff on the planet, but their storytelling was excellent. And it just, and you know, it's one of those things where, you know, people sometimes confuse the ingredients. Exactly. There you go.
Yep.
You've started your journey finally, John.
Yeah.
But
I told him I never read a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. I got lectured by Tonic.
My God.
Same. I've never read one.
Yeah, I haven't read it yet. So
this is what world am I in? My God. They're like the patron saints of indie comics. So,
that I agree with.
I went to the comic book store, and I'm always trying to buy new comics to read, right? Because it's fun, but they're bad, and so I'm like always.
You're still hopeful, huh? You haven't been crushed yet.
Well, okay. I buy so few though, right? So like I go and then
let's take a poll. Fabrizio, do you still go to comic stores and buy new comics?
No, I go to comic stores. They're not new comics that I'm buying.
Kevin, do you go to comic stores and buy new comics?
I do hunt for comics, and I'll tell you what I like right now.
I'm talking new comics.
Yep, new comics. And you know what I like actually? Mark Waid's World's Finest in Teen Titans.
I've been hearing that's good. Mark Waid may be a jerk in real life, but he's a hell of a writer. I got to give credit where credit is. I like to think that I'm an ass, but I'm a fair ass.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, recently, my wife, she reads more new comics than I do.
Okay.
She reads more in general. I'm not a strong reader. I write 200 times more than I'll ever read. But she's buying Fire and Ice by the guy who did
Bill Willingham, right?
Yeah, Bill Willingham.
Yeah, that looks good. I didn't get it yet. I get my comics online, and I always seem to be like a month or two late.
Yeah.
I got plenty to read.
Yeah, and then the new Conan the Barbarian, and
that's supposed to be good. That's Dan Panosian, huh?
Yeah, and she's really liking those. And then we're also getting
those are the two comics everybody's raving about now.
Yeah. And Battle Chasers.
Oh yeah,
his new deal.
I'm disappointed that it's not Joe Madura doing the artwork, but
everybody is. It, you know, the guy is good enough though. Like the guy is okay, but I mean, obviously, you go, can we have the best guy? Well, no, he's busy. I don't know, living life. But I went and
I like that they continued the numbering.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And it's only 12 or 13 years between issues. Don't worry about
it. Yeah, and there's not that many. But there, I'm a big fan of Power Girl, but more of the possibilities of the character than what has ever actually happened. But I didn't much care for it until Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Connor's run.
Well, that was a fun run.
Yeah, and you only need to read it. You could have never read a DC comic before, and this is all you need. And that's what I liked because I'm a fair weather reader. If I like it, I read, and the second I don't, I'm gone. And
well, that's probably good. I'm doing a series now of like my long boxes of my comics.
Yeah.
I'm up to. I recorded 18 of them, and I'm just finishing Batman, and I'm doing a math. You're going to see a lot of bad comics that I just continued collecting because I'm a crazy person,
Now, Fabrizio, you do Wolf and Batsy, is that you?
No, I do Horace H. Hoover.
Horace H. Hoover, okay.
Yeah.
Wolf and Batsy is good.
It's one of my favorite comics. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Okay. I was going to say, what we need to do is we need more good if the horror comics are well executed, the kids will buy them. Somebody's got to make them.
Yeah. Horace H. I keep saying Harding. Horace H. Hoover. It's everything that I want. It's occult. It's superheroes. It's mystery. And then like weird Lovecraft. Look. I keep saying, look how normal Fabrizio looks. Inside, that skeleton, I think he dug it up himself,
I did actually look for a real skeleton, which you're not allowed to own before buying them.
But it's fun to be bad. We already established this.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all just take all the stuff that we love, like a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and try to put it into the stories or the art. I think you can't help but do that.
Yeah, I can't wait, and I'm dying to ask him for spoilers, but I don't want to know spoilers at the same time, So, when's the next issue coming out? Issue 1 and issue 2 came out. You can get them for $2 a piece over at alternatecomics.com, and I highly recommend it.
Thank you. Well, we're doing single title campaigns now, so issue 3, 4, and 5 will come out all at once.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow!
But it'll take. It won't be until they're done though, so it's gonna be a pretty big gap. But
and you can go to Tonic Comics and pick up Saving the World. I got to say I'm very loyal to Tonic Mold because I'm a crazy person and I need first prints of all my comics. And when I ordered, I think it was number 5 was like I didn't realize it wasn't first print, and I was like,
right.
And no. Here's what happened. I ordered, but you couldn't get number 5 first print. And,
right.
and it bothered you that I didn't order number 5, so he just threw it in for free. And
that's a life hack. If you go to my website and order all of them but one, it's gonna be in there. I've packed and number 5s was the most, right? Because it was sold out, and I didn't put the second print up yet, and so I had a bunch of people ordering like the catch up without number 5, and I was like, well, I need to put up this number the second print, but what if they don't come back because they don't know, and I was like, I can't send this out like this. And so I was putting number 5s in there. And
I opened up the box. I'm like, oh my, I had to message him. I'm like, you realize I didn't pay, I felt guilty and that's it. So catering to the OCD among us.
You're right. With my own OCD.
Yeah.
Oh man, can you tell us about the Horace book, Fabrizio? I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, sure. Horace H. Hoover is set in like the 1920s. He's an occult detective who wears a helmet that looks suspiciously like a vacuum. It's a little Lovecraftian. He's kind of solves occult mysteries. He travels through these pocket universes and kind of sees a lot of crazy stuff. The first 5 issues is the miniseries, and there's going to be an ongoing series. He has 2 partners, Slurp and Max. Slurp is we'll call him an alien that just speaks in an alien language, and then Max is his sort of New York tough guy, little Max. Short guy. He travels with him all over the place.
He doesn't have a lot of dialogue, but I like Max.
Can anyone understand Slurp?
It's written in a font that if you want to, you can figure out what he's saying by looking at the font and copying and pasting and translating it. So yes, you could.
Now I have to do that. Somebody said that you could do that, and I didn't realize it.
Yeah.
And I just read Fiendish by Irene Stachowski. I'm sure I'm butchering her name.
I believe it is Strakowski.
Strakowski. Okay.
Yep.
And she made up her own language, and she put signs and glyphs. I stop and I translate it. Now I got to do the same thing with Slurp. Did anybody read the Micronauts as a kid?
Sure.
You remember they did that? They made up their own language, and me and my friends, we would read the signs.
I love
that stuff.
Paul Levitz did that with Legion.
Yep, Interlac. Yep, I love that stuff. Yeah. So So when I forget who it was that brought it up that you could actually read Slurp's dialogue, I was like, I gotta go. I'll be right back. I gotta go get the comments.
I was going to make an augmented reality app that essentially when you hover over the page, it would translate it like a secret decoder type ring. I think I will do that before the 5 issues are done.
That would be cool. That's like a fun thing, a fun little gimmick. Yeah. Oh, and Tonic, I think you should make an app that when you put it over Saving the World, it tells you the bra sizes of all the
female characters. Hey, I do something nifty. I put this one's cheap and easy, but I put when I draw the comics and while I write them to some degree, but when I draw them, I'm listening to music constantly, and they'll be like, I'll make a soundtrack of like 15 songs that's for that issue, and when I did the first 7 issues, I guess, I was always like, man, I wish there was a way to like put that soundtrack in, where they could hear it while they're reading the comic. And then I finally, with number 8, realized I could put QR codes hidden in the art. So I put QR codes hidden in the backgrounds. Sometimes I just blop right there in the corner of the frame. And I try to pace it to where once they start that song, they'll have read the pages till the next one and that type of thing. And
Dinosaur Jr. and some
cool.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Oh, really?
So
it's all sometimes based on the era or the mood. It's kind of.
I got to come up with a gimmick now. I think I'll do scratch and sniff for my comic.
I suggest something super cheap. That's why I picked. And I'm always curious about like how much pointless work comic book artists do. Like, there are so many Easter eggs in Saving the World, and so many that I don't even remember what they're referencing. And so, like,
and you act all mysterious to be like, you have a good eye, my friend. All shall be revealed.
Nobody's looking into this crap that I spend, Lily in number 10, which is it's headed to printers shortly. I wanted to redesign her costume like every time because it's leaping in time with it as issues go by. Anyways, and I wanted something like more detailed and cool, and to hint that she has traveled throughout time. So like every little piece is an archaeological find that in real life, and nobody's gonna know or give a shit. But if they were bored enough, you could find where. So the idea being that these things she has were found later because she lives throughout time and all this stuff. Anyways, and so like she has a coin on her head that I think's from like ancient Spain or something, and then there's this what looks like necklace that's kind of hanging on her shoulders, and it's an archaeological find from Europe that was like a necklace of somebody.
See, I love that stuff. I love that stuff.
No, see, Tonic, when people finally discover your book and you're rich and famous, selling millions, they'll be holding classes. It'll be like going over the Beatles albums, looking for clues that Paul died. Oh, look at the crack in that wall.
That meant,
There'll be old nerds like us going, hey, do you know? And there's some things, sometimes like, you'll see the same necklace because one of my characters is traveling throughout time and like manipulating the everything, and then the others are just living in it. And there's one necklace that I put throughout the series, but different people are wearing it. So, but you don't know, all the main characters are on a linear path, except for this one character that's just moving all around. So where this object moves gives you hints of, how it all. Anyways, nobody's no. You don't need to know any of this, and nobody will really care. And I'm only half certain I remember what my intent was.
If I start writing, I'm going to need to take notes and go, all right, I stole this from this and that from that. So somebody will ask me, all right, go look it up.
Hey, it's the DC way. You just that was like earlier, you guys talking about the shadow. And my brother is friends with the great granddaughter of the founder of DC Comics.
Okay.
Right? So that got me interested in.
Could you get us all jobs and get everybody else fired?
Oh, well, let me tell you why that wouldn't work. So in the 20s, whenever he started, he was just reprinting funnies from the funny papers.
Right. That's why they were called comic books. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And it was just after they were in the newspaper, he would collect them and sell them, and that was how it started. And then he wanted to start getting new characters or original stuff. And DC Comics published the first comic book of original content. And this guy he wasn't the greatest guy ever. So
yeah, there's a lot of stories of those guys ripping people off. And
are we referring to Major Nicola Wilson?
Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
I told you. Kevin should start up his own YouTube channel, but then nobody would watch me. Kevin stays.
I don't have to remember names because I don't. I'll just be like, Kevin, you fill in.
Here's what I'm wondering, if I may.
Yeah.
His granddaughter played Lacey Underall in Caddyshack.
Yeah. And
really?
And she was also in
Really? I have a very inappropriate story I could tell.
Jeez.
Well, you remember the Fletch with Chevy Chase?
Yeah.
She's the romantic interest, Chevy's romantic interest in that.
Wow, that's a bit of trivia I never knew.
Yeah, so that's her. And I'd asked my brother, I was like, hey, she ever considered like making a movie about her great grandfather? It's crazy. He's like, I think it might be a sensitive subject. So after he did all of that, he had investors come in because he couldn't pay for paper and all this type of stuff. So he made deals with the guys who made the paper that they printed on. And it was this whole deal. Well, him and his wife, his other business partner said, hey, why don't you go on a little vacation, brainstorm some ideas, and we'll take care of the business. He goes, okay, sounds great. He comes back and the doors are locked. They'd kicked him out of the company he founded.
Now we're now talking about the Donenfeld brothers.
Yes.
Yep.
Exactly. And so they lock him out. He's out of his own business. So that's as far as he went. And then those guys, they launch Action Comics and Adventure Comics, I can't remember what order, and then Detective Comics. But, there was the big deal about Bill Finger and how he really created Batman. But Bill Finger himself said, neither of us did. We were clearly stealing from the Shadow,
right?
And just calling the Shadow Batman. And the Shadow novels was word for word the exact same story. All they had to do was and when it says the Shadow, they say Batman.
Actually, right. We're talking about Shadow number 8.
Yeah.
I told you, nobody's going to watch my show.
Right. And that's where I
think with Superman, they took Philip Wiley's Gladiator. He could jump an eighth of a mile, nothing short of a bursting shell could penetrate his flesh. And he even had a Fortress of Solitude up in the north,
Right. And Bill Finger and Bob Kane were always like, they always had these elaborate stories of how they created, like, oh, well, we saw The Man Who Laughs and we thought the Joker. Yeah. Or they read the novel called The Joker, the something of the Joker or something, this deal. Anyways, it's the exact same freaking story.
Yep.
The guy does the same thing, and his name is the Joker, or just Joker, something like that. Anyways, they were just stealing because it was stuff for kids.
Right.
Kids wouldn't know what these novels were.
Oh, not only that, but it came and went. I mean, it was in the
Right.
newsstand and then it was gone. And so there's no internet. You can't look anything up.
Yeah.
But
Right.
to take the Batman story one step further, there's a playwright. I'm going to try to do this without looking it up and cheating. But in 1912, she wrote a play called, or she wrote a book called The Green Staircase, and it was turned into a Broadway play called The Bat. I can't think of the woman's. I can't think of the woman's name.
Wow.
But the and then it was revived on Broadway because it originally premiered in like 1912, but then they had a revival of it in 1936, which is just about the time that Bill Finger and Bob Kane were inventing Batman.
Right.
But they had a villain in it who would climb up on into the windows and shine a bat signal through the window.
Ooh.
And meanwhile, over in the pulp novels, there was a character called the Whisperer, and in his secret identity, he was Police Commissioner James Gordon.
And this is where I think it's interesting to where, reconciling, where people are like, oh, Batman. It's like it was based off of theft, like the plagiarism, which is like to writers and creators the worst thing you could do.
I have a character in my comic called Mr. Westinghouse, and he has a washing machine on his head.
Oh yeah.
No connection.
And it's very coincidental to Horace. And I was thinking of it first before Horace.
Okay, so we get the Gladiator, we get the Shadow, and then this turns into actually the Shadow. If you remember, his secret identity was let's see if I can remember this. It was not Lamont Cranston, the one from the pulp novels. His name is Kent Allard.
Kent Allard, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or no, excuse me, Doc Savage. His name is Clark W. Savage. So we have Clark Kent,
Yep.
and Kent Allard. And
Yep.
between Clark Kent and Ken Allard, we get Clark Kent.
Yep. It's all ripped off.
But then move forward to the 50s. If you go to the movies, you look at the movies, it's all giant monsters, and it's a lot of cheap horror movies. And they were putting the Universal films on television. 10 years later, we have monster comics and monster magazines. Mm-hmm. So it's whatever the zeitgeist is. And then 10 years later, because the Aurora models were selling and the monster magazines were selling, we get monster comic books. Tomb of Dracula.
My brothers had the Aurora models, and some of them glowed in the dark. I was terrified of them as a kid. I made them throw them away. How much of a jerk was I to make my brother throw away those models? I wanted to bring this up. I had a talk with Phoenix Press this week, and he gave me this idea because I keep joking that I wanted to have a convention in my basement, like Alternicon, with featuring Tonic Mall as a special guest. That we'd all sit at my table, all the Pizza Medi and Wes and Bryan Bow and Fabrizio and Rob, and we'd all have a convention. And then he said, well, why don't you play, because I play a superhero role-playing game. And then he brought up the idea. He goes, how about you have all those guys roll up their characters and play a role-playing game? So Fabrizio, of course, you're going to be Horace. Tonic Mall, who would you be? And you can't be Whipperwet, because then nobody else gets to even have an action.
Yeah, that's cheaty. Kira probably.
Yeah, Kira. All right. Yeah,
that's cheaty too, but
I think Bryan would be allowed to have Wolf and Batsy.
Yeah.
Pete would be King Crypt. But how cool would that to run a game with that is my dream. One day when I hit the lottery, I'm going to have Ethan Van Sciver sitting over here playing a role-playing game as Cyberfrog.
Yeah.
Fabrizio as this. Just have everybody. Kevin, you got to make up a character.
Well, John, I'm curious. What game system are you using?
Villains and Vigilantes.
Oh, I do love that. I have a copy of that. Yep.
So I'll plug myself now. If you go to villainsvigilantesforum.com, that's my forum that I've been running since like 1995.
Sweet. Oh.
I'm not joking. I've been keeping that role-playing game in the public eye for us 30. If you're a fan of Villains and Vigilantes and actively playing it, you've been to my forum. Bill Willingham was on my forum at one point.
Yeah, he did some artwork for it, but I think I bought that game.
No, I'm saying he came to my forum. He was a member of my forum and commented. Jeff D, one of the other creators, used to come. And then what happened was the Scott Bizarre was the guy who owned Fantasy Games, and Jeff D and Jack Herman created that particular. They had like a battle over the rights, and it split, and there was like a legal. And this is going to sound pretentious, but both of them were trying to recruit me to their side because I was like the public face of V&V for a while.
Right.
And I was like, Mommy and Daddy are fighting. I just want to play a role-playing game, and I don't want to get involved with this. And,
John, I'll tell you a story that'll blow your mind.
He knows everybody over here.
No, I don't know any of these guys, but I'll tell you what. I was in the Yahoo forum for Villains and Vigilantes, and I said, it's a shame you can't go to the store and buy this book. Somebody should write a generic version of Villains and Vigilantes just so we can play it. And I didn't even say I was going to do it. I just said, somebody should do it. Well, Jeff D read that and came back, and he was going to sue me, and he was going to drag me to federal court, and no. I said, listen, the Copyright Office says you can't copyright game rules, Jeff. I said, I have no intention of doing this, but I just suggested somebody should. He got Brad Rose, who was his attorney from Miami, to contact me. Yeah. And the next thing I know, the two of them are going after Scott Bizarre.
Yeah.
That whole thing with Scott Bizarre, I instigated that accidentally.
Oh, see, tangentially, Kevin has been my, like separated by you. But Jeff D and Rose came to my forum to sue me because I was using the name Village Vigilantes without their permission. And I said, Jeff, be real. Who in the world would be, because they were going to come out with the 3rd edition. I said, who would even be interested in your game if I wasn't the only one on the planet keeping interest in your game going for the past 25 years? And I said, go ahead, sue me. I said, what do you want? You want me to take down this forum? And nobody, anybody who played Villains Vigilantes since 1983 is a member of my. Matter of fact, we went to a convention and we all met. I was wearing a Gary Con shirt the other day. That we all met and hung out. The only one who didn't go was Jeff D. I don't think he wanted to see me because this was after he threatened to sue me. So I'm not a big fan of his. And it's a shame because I loved his artwork and those models, and he said he was going to do artwork for my forum, and then never did,
Well, you know what?
If you go on that forum, click on the banner, you get a document of all my house rules, which is bigger than the actual rule book.
Mm-hmm. If one person, because I always thought about this, but it's really hard because there's so many factions, and where do you draw the line? I kind of had that problem with Saving the World #8, which was this massive crossover with everyone. So I got like Terry Moore let me use Motor Girl, and Jimmy Palmiotti Trigger Girl, and
Trigger Girl 6.
Yeah, and Punchline, and all these things. Anyways, everybody I knew that I could DM, I DM'd them, and they let me use their characters. And then it was mainly between Rags and Saving the World. And I was always like, man, if more people could get along to have like a card game that is exactly that, right? But you'd have to have one person, because of course if I made my own Kira card, it'd be like she beats everybody.
Right, you're gonna beef up your own character. Yeah,
right. So you need one person.
You need one person to balance all the cards.
Right, a neutral person to balance these all out. But it would be cool if, because I've always wanted more unity in the kind of the indie circle. Because it's not that big of a circle, so it's insane that it's so fractured.
And infighting would only kill it. I hate when I go on to Twitter and I see the mainstream pros like, look at all these CG guys hate each other.
Right.
A few guys tried to draw me into. I'm not mentioning names. They tried to draw me, and I'm like, I'm not interested. Like, please don't get mad at me. But I want to talk about things that I like. I want to talk to people about comp. I don't want to talk about these two guys hate each other and this.
Right.
Well, in between the Donenfeld brothers and Jeff D, we have a whole new meaning to monsters in comics.
Yeah. And
And one of the things I just, well, now that you brought him up, I just wrote an email to Scott Bizarre. Scott Bizarre at one point asked me to come to Arizona to help him promote the relaunch of Villains Vigilantes. And I was like, yeah, sure. Well, yeah, you know, don't mean to be crude, but what do I get out of it? He goes, I'll buy you a ticket. And I'm like, oh, a ticket? What do you mean a ticket? He goes, a ticket to the convention. I was like, dude, I got to take a week off work. I got to buy an airplane ticket. I got to go for a $40 ticket. I was like, I don't mean to be rude, but like, I'm an electrician. You got to give me at least a week's pay, you know. So I never did that. But in my comic, when I finally I want to do, because I have 22 pages of story, but I have to do like 32 pages to get it printed. So I want to do a letters page, and one of the things I want to write up the good guys and the bad guys as a role playing character.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, actually,
so I wrote to Scott Bizarre to ask him, can we cross promote this with Villains and Vigilantes?
Oh yeah.
He hasn't got back to me yet.
Yeah, the Andy and Dennis, who do Cordrath, are actually writing this up for D&D 5.0 and putting out their own module.
Yep.
Tying it into the role-playing game.
So, Kevin, you know everybody. If you know Scott Bizarre, ask him, you know.
You know what? There's a guy that I know that I used to
I know. You know everybody.
No. He's out in
now
Phoenix.
You know Tonic Bowl and Fabrizio.
Yeah. I knew this guy. I knew this guy from Facebook, and I can't remember his name. He was friends with Scott Bizarre. I've never spoken with Scott.
Yeah. There was a guy who used to post all the time that worked directly for Scott Bizarre. I haven't seen him for years.
But, you know, like, don't get me started on public domain and the ownership. A lot of this stuff.
That's a good question. What do you guys feel about public domain characters?
Well, you know, I would love. They're not worth messing with, but I love Phantom Lady, and there was a lot of those that I kind of started collecting. What was the Fire Hair, the Western comic?
Yeah.
And about the lady, and I had considered. I was like, man, it'd be cool to revive some of these, you know. But then I saw Dynamite Comics doing it like crazy, and I was like, oh, it looks trashy from the outside, right? As a creator, there's this kind of exciting thing to be able to, you know, revive this character that's been dead. But then you see when it's actually being done, and you're like, yeah, but it's not really. You know, it's kind of like, I don't know. It comes off weird to me. But
Fabrizio, would you use?
I mean, I would rather do my characters and my ideas. If I run out of that eventually, I maybe that would be a possibility, or maybe incorporate like a minor character. But it's never been sort of in my plan at all.
I have a friend, one of my friends who used to be in my game group, and he moved out to Oregon, and he's in the process of making characters with like real obscure 40s public domain characters. And God bless him. He loves doing it. You know, he's hiring artists and putting people to work, you know. But I look at it, if I'm going to make like, I don't know, I can't even, like a Phantom Girl, I will just make up. It's easy enough to change a few things and make up your own, and then it's yours, and then you don't have to worry about lawsuits. You know, because just imagine if I took Phantom Girl and I did 5 popular issues, and then I got a cease and desist, you know, and then the 6th issue has to be about a different character or whatever.
Right, and it's getting complicated with mainstream comics doing
like,
it. Right?
Like Batman's supposed to be open source now or whatever. It's not. There's no way I'm touching that.
Right, and was it Phantom Lady? Is it Phantom Girl?
Well, I don't know. Wait a minute. Well, let's clear this up. Phantom Girl is Tina Wazo from Legion of Superheroes.
That's
Phantom
right.
Lady is Sandra Knight from Quality Comics.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Phantom Lady is public domain.
Right. I said Phantom Girl, yes.
But DC Comics has relaunched her like 5 times in the past like 25 years or something. And so you'd have to be careful because theirs is copyright.
I wouldn't, you know.
Yeah.
God bless
what
everybody who wants to do this, but
when everybody does these, because I read the Dynamite Project Superpowers,
and that was good. I enjoyed that. But
the mistake that everybody made, and then I think ABC Alan Moore did. I I can't remember. He had some kind of Doc Savage ripoff, like
Tom Strong.
Tom Strong.
I love Tom Strong. Yeah.
And then Tom Strong went to the planet where all the Quality Comics heroes lived.
Terra Obscura.
Terra Obscura, and they had all the same characters. And so I'm looking at the problem they all do is all of them are like held in amber, and then the amber cracks open and they all pop up like it's 1942. It's like, no, guys, it's 2022. So update the characters. They're the same guys. They have the same powers, but they're new characters. That might engage people, I think.
Yeah. And you're really in. I think there's a thing where creators, like working with them, you kind of feel like Christopher Nolan with his take on Batman, where he's like rethinking little things, and so you can nerd out on it. But if you then say, well, I'm the reader, and if Phantom Lady, is the example of just stumble on, was popular, she would already have had a comic, right? And so it'd be easier launching a new character than it would be informing people about this thing they don't know.
All the effort of come with some convoluted reason why they're still around. You know, there's two solutions: either don't or continue it in 1941.
Let's look at some of the characters, the popular characters that we know. We already covered Batman, and by the way, the woman's name is Mary Rogers Reinhardt, who wrote the original Batman. Okay, that was in 1912. So the Superman guys are ripping off the Gladiator. Let's look at Green Arrow. That's there was a movie. It wasn't called Green Arrow. It was called The Green Archer. And if you look at if you look at the poster, it's exactly the same character. If you look at Green Lantern, that's the Lensman from the 1920s pulp novels. Yeah, if you look at Hawkman, that's from Flash Gordon, Alex Raymond. If you look at,
they were even called Hawkmen.
Right, they were even called the Hawkmen. So there's the Green Lantern. There are several Green Lantern restaurants that some of which are still open today. These guys were just stealing everything. So for a lawyer from Warner Brothers to sit back and go, "Oh no, you can't touch this," well, fuck you. Sorry about the language.
But I don't know if I have the money to. I'd rather do the safer. Plus, I want to play with my own toys.
Yeah. Right. Like if I can talk to the creator, like Cerebus. I've been going to do something with Cerebus for a while, and I was all set up. Actually, my number 8 was supposed to be a crossover because I'm a nerd, and so like one of my favorite Ninja Turtles comics was number 8, which was a crossover with Cerebus. And so I was like, oh, my number 8 will be a crossover, big crossover too. And my friend Jim Lawson, who drew Ninja Turtles for a long time, was doing a cover, so it's this whole cool thing. And but then, I knew that there was Dave Sim, who created Cerebus, has always been controversial.
Right.
And so, like, I think there's an old quote from Neil Gaiman or something that he's a racist, bigot, piece of shit, right? Something like that. Neil Gaiman, everybody, they all hated him. And I was like, yeah, but screw those guys. Who cares what they think? And so I was like, I'm going to do a crossover. And then, like, evidently, one of my friends DM'd me and like, dude, I don't know. And I was like, what? Why would you think? The people that don't like him don't like me. And he's like, well, I don't know. Did you hear about this? And it was like Modern Times, and he was canceled by Comicsgate. And I was like, dude.
Ethan was going to hire him. And
I was like, Dave.
Yeah, I've been sitting on, I got Dave Sim's phone number, and I've been contemplating calling him up and talking to him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because I still want to talk about the comic. You know what I mean? And whatever.
Man, if you could get him on, and what's weird? I understand people, like some people's like, oh, he did this. I was like, but that's the point. That is the point of the comic, right? Yeah. He's self-aware, right? Now, someone who says controversial things or whatever and is completely oblivious is kind of boring. But a writer who's like that and knows, hey, I'm not.
Keep in mind, we're talking about a guy who dropped acid, and during the acid trip, God told him to make a 300 issue miniseries.
And he
so,
did it.
and he
right?
did it. So you
Lots
know
of
that there's
people
going to be some
say,
controversial stuff out of him.
but I was reading.
Did you read Cerebus?
Yeah.
I'm up to like 68, and I'm like, the first 20 issues, I'm like, this is great. This is great.
Right.
Then it's like 20 issues in a row where he's the administrator of a town and he doesn't even leave his room. And I'm like,
right.
Oh,
now,
God.
the first 20 issues, I mean, the magic was already there. And he was really good at lacing his really weird outlook on life. And I don't agree with hardly any of it. But he doesn't either. Like, he's disagreeing with himself in his own comics. And that, like, blows my mind. And then as it goes, he just becomes like the scope of what he's trying to say keeps expanding. And yes, it becomes unreadable. It becomes like a terrible thing. Like there's no
It becomes more interesting than the comic when he's having a breakdown and
right
going through a divorce with his wife and then like arguing with people.
Yeah, there's no
it's
entertainment.
almost like a diary of a person falling apart. You know,
that's 100% what the last 200 issues are.
Yeah,
it is a guy's downward spiral into insanity.
Yeah, it's almost like reading Dostoevsky or something like that.
Right.
You know? Yeah,
and he knew.
So I do want to talk to the guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
and he's normal now, mainly.
He's normal now, and he never killed anybody or stuff like that.
Right.
They have interviews with Charles Manson. Those people aren't canceled.
That's right. All this guy did was draw a comic with mild controversial terms, and they were all
my understanding with Dave Sim is the problem with him was that he dated a 19-year-old girl.
Yeah.
That was it. He's like 50 and he's dating a 19-year-old girl.
That's the because I heard it was even younger than that. So
he met her when she was younger.
Right. Yeah. And so
is what it is.
But he talks about it and it's funny because everybody acted like they found this out. It's like, no, you read his comic for the first time.
No, we all buy David Bowie records, and he had a 14-year-old girlfriend. You know,
right.
we all buy Led Zeppelin albums. They were all going to a boarding school in England, and
right.
and the school principals were pimping out these girls to rock stars.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And we all like those cheeky bastards. You know,
right.
Black Dog.
I mean, I still love Roman Polanski's films. Like his movies have not diminished in my eyes.
He's a talented guy, and he's a piece of shit at the same time. You know,
right?
Here's the point: Roman Polanski. You bring him up. You know who was sitting next to Roman Polanski when he was with the 14? No, I don't know him. But you know who was sitting next to him when he had
Jack
the 14-year-old? Jack Nicholson. That's right. Nothing ever happened to Jack.
When he won his Oscar, I see Meryl Streep standing up and clapping.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
You know.
And for me, the thing that whether I can enjoy the art and despite the creator is depending on what the art's about. So with Dave Sim, he is saying, hey, I do shitty things and I wrote a comic about it and I'm tormented by the shitty things I do.
Yeah.
And this comic is about me and that I think I'm a piece of shit. Well, then people going, did you know he's a piece of shit? Well, that's the plot of his goddamn comic. Yes. Yeah, there's 300 issues of him explaining why he hates himself.
Yeah.
And he becomes celibate and all this stuff and created his own religion. Yeah, that's the plot. Now, Bill Cosby, the plot of anything he's done was never what he did. Well, that ruins it for me. I can't enjoy it. And I don't boycott things at all. If I want to watch it and I enjoy it, I do that. I don't care. But my brain, my subconscious, cannot watch the Cosby Show because it goes, well, this is a load of crap because he's a serial rapist. Yeah. And so it kills it for me. So it depends, kind of like them saying.
Well, let's not with Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby in the 70s was handing out pills to dates. And they would sit around and take pills. That was we call that the 70s. Everybody was handing out pills.
Not to defend Bill Cosby, but he had his conviction thrown away and expurged, so he's not a felon anymore.
Technically not.
And I remember at the time at work, I was defending the guy. I'm like, I'm like, I'm not saying he's innocent in reality, but he's innocent in the law because this is all hearsay. I said, this is just we're ganging up on some guy based on he said, she said. There's no evidence. And I remember guys were getting mad at me. And I said, either we have a system of law with burden of proof or we don't.
Right.
He's accused of heinous things. And deep down, I believe that he did those things. But like,
and see,
then when he got quietly released and his record experts, like I read about it like maybe a year later, that was a miscarriage of justice. There was no evidence.
Yeah, and he can, but this is just with me enjoying his
look at Fabrizio
comedy.
get more and more uncomfortable as this conversation.
No, this is where I feel like I'm in the minority, and then I don't care what people do. If I found out that Michelangelo was a serial killer, I would not think twice about it.
It doesn't change his art.
Yeah, so it depends what you think of art. What is art? And to me, it's its own thing. So a comedian, a musician, it doesn't make a difference to me at all. But I know a lot of people.
How many actors and actresses and artists and musicians are total pieces of crap in real life? And I'm like,
Yeah, and see, it's not about whether they're a piece of crap or not, because all my favorite artists are pieces of crap. It's sincerity and sincerity, right? Well, for me, I can't watch Bill Cosby comedy because it's insincere. He because even if he didn't do those crimes, the things he admitted to doing contradicted everything he said. And his whole base of his persona was he was criticizing Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle. He was telling them that they were pieces of shit for their crude comedy.
Like Eddie Murphy said, he goes, if you had told me 30 years ago that Bill Cosby would be in jail for rape and I'm a stay dad, I would have given you the finger.
Right.
And by the way, guys, the R word is something that trips off YouTube. Just a word of caution.
Oh, okay.
That particular word is something that YouTube does not like.
I have to go because I have another chat scheduled at 10. But I wanted to address what Bill Robinson said. We talked before. I could do a small version of Marvel Universe or who's who in DC for my comic. I was planning on that from day one. That I would love to just, more the DC who's who than the Marvel Universe. Just put my characters on the side. A write up about them, and then go far. I actually want to stat out like what is their strength in D&D terms and stuff like that. The strength, the power. For all the good guys. Any character that appears in my comic, I want to put like a little, and then maybe trading cards. I don't know. I'm trying to come up with ideas for like perks. Like I definitely want to do T-shirts.
In terms of,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was saying in terms of separating the art from the artist. I remember seeing an old interview with Groucho Marx, and this was done in the early 70s. I think it was like Cavett, and he said, "What do you think of the state of comedy today?" And Groucho said, all these comedians are working blue. They're using dirty words. He says, if you can't get a laugh without using dirty words, there's something wrong with you. And then one of the famous stories about the Marx Brothers, I think it was Chico. The IRS showed up looking for Chico at Zeppo's house. And Zeppo looked at him and said, you're not looking very hard because Zeppo's either on a horse or a woman. So that's what these guys were like. And they're like, yeah, we toured theaters all across. They kept their daughters away from us, believe me.
Yeah.
My grandfather used to play pool with Jackie Gleason, and he said after Jackie Gleason would leave, he would hustle everybody. He was a great pool player, and he would leave. And he said as soon as he would leave, they all get on the phones. Jackie's leaving. Make sure your daughters are home.
Yeah.
But anything you guys want to say? I want to have a couple of minutes to drink some coffee before my next chat. Anything you guys want to say, Fabrizio?
No, thanks for having us. This is fun.
Did this conversation have anything to do with Friday the 13th? I think it did for like 10 minutes.
No, but I just want to say this. For the record, I did the chicken thing first. Serious.
Guys, if you get anything out of this hour and 45 minutes, it's that Fabrizio invented the fighting chicken first.
So.
And I definitely think we covered a lot of monsters in the entertainment field in many different ways.
The human as a monster. How's that to tie it together? The human as a monster. which is the scariest monster in the world because humans are real. Back to horror movies. I could watch horror movies, slasher films, just eating popcorn, not thinking about it. But like a movie like The Hitcher, that scares me because there are crazy, like that. Saw bothers me. I can't watch. I watched the first Saw movie. That's like,
it's too realistic.
Right. Yeah. You're going to tell me there's not somebody in Eastern Croatia or something like that. It's like one of these former Soviet countries that doesn't have a castle and is killing people.
Well,
Hostel's the one that scares me.
Tonic told the story of the Wheeler-Nicholson thing with the Donenfeld brothers when DC started. They actually had another partner, and I'm going to get the name wrong, Max Gaines, and he ran All American Comics. They did the same thing to him. They shoved him right out the door, and he wound up having to go start Mad Magazine.
Yep, he started DC Comics. Him and his son,
because the Donenfelds threw him out the door.
Well, the name is Donner. So I'm glad they didn't eat him.
No, Donenfeld. That's
okay. But thanks a lot, guys. Anybody who, let's pitch your comics one time. So Fabrizio, go ahead.
Horace H. Hoover, issues 1 and 2 are on turnofcomics.com. Occult Detective meets Mr. Bean.
Yeah, it's so good. I that picture when he goes into the library. Oh my God!
Thank you.
I'm gonna have to commission the original art from you about that. That is awesome. And Tonic, what do you got?
Oh yeah. Okay. Oh yeah. I got Saving the World, but hold on. Yeah, I looked at the Horace H. Hoover. Man, the art is freaking sweet as hell. I haven't read it yet.
Thank you.
But no, it's very good. And
it's $2 newsprint.
That's crazy.
What else do you want, guys?
I charge a lot more, and my comics are really bad. So, Saving the World, you can get at my website, www.toniccomics.com. We're about to ship issue number 10 and start funding issue number 11. And also, we have a spinoff that will be later this year called On Call Heroes, which is the same main cast of girls, superhero girls, and the Unicorn Man, but more focused on just.
Speaking of monsters.
What? Yeah, speaking of monsters. Whoa. Unicorn Man's for the ladies. I don't want to only be the male gaze, so I threw in the Unicorn Man. So, and yeah, you can get all those issues, but it's with, I don't know if you've seen the comic Vestry. He's the artist for Vestry. He's from Czechoslovakia? No, Czech somewhere. Anyways, Eastern Europe. And, but I've known him for a long time. And they just wrapped up a 5-issue run on Vestry, and he was looking for something to do. I was like, I always got something for somebody. So he's going to draw it, and I'm going to write it. And cool. So it'll run parallel with Saving the World. So I can get more story
Saving the world on minimum wage. I love that tagline.
Exactly. And so, yeah, you can get them all. You can even pre-order number 10 on the Saving the World or the Tonic Comics website.
I like both of these comics. I love Saving the World. I love Horace H. Hoover and Brian Bow, who couldn't come tonight. I love Wolf and Batsy. Yeah. To be serious and maudlin for a minute, I even love Kevin, even though he doesn't make a comic. But he makes up for it by knowing all of this information. He's like my guy that I go to. Am I right about this?
I have gone mad reading too many comic books.
But I say this every once in a while, but like I'm so happy that my silly little talk about comic books. Now I'm talking to these guys who make my favorite comics coming out. Like I was joking earlier that I don't go to comic stores and I don't buy new comics, but I do buy new comics. I get Fabrizios, I get Tonics, and they're wonderful. I look forward to them.
I've read Wolf and Batsy. I think it's terrific.
Oh, yeah. Wolf and Batsy.
Yeah, it's fun.
We were talking about the Gorilla Suit Maniac. Open up the Gorilla Suit Maniac and look at that artwork. I know Bryan gets embarrassed when I say this, but like I look at that first page and I could see by Will Eisner just on the bottom. Right. I mean, that's how good it is. Phenomenal.
Me and him are friends on like Twitter or something, but we are the most contrary people on the planet, except for we have two sets of characters that are like very close. I have Lillian Wepawet and he has Wolf and Batsy.
Oh yeah, he loves Wepawet.
Yeah, a pretty girl and a deal. But me and him are always like, I mean, we're not fighting type guys. It's just that anytime have an opinion. It's like, boop, and we're different. And so it's fun. But we're both pretty laid back guys. We don't fire
I'm
nothing.
sure I
But
I could find something to disagree with everybody about. I'm that kind of
oh
jerk.
yeah. Well, I would love like to do like a crossover with Lily and Weapon and Wolf and Batsy just because it's
Oh
kind of
my
silly.
god!
But yeah, that'd be cool.
I'm trying to find my credit card right now.
Wait,
Yeah, they go disappear. Wolf and Batsy and Weapon, they get sucked into a void, and Horace H. Hoover has to figure out the mystery.
yeah, that's right. And see, I created in my comic the smart girl that's Kira's friend. She creates this portal in number 8, and that's what they get sucked into. And it was a fix-all for any crossover. Is that she has a microwave hooked up to an Atari
There you go.
that creates this portal. So they can go, like anybody can come and go without messing with someone's universe or whatever.
Well,
anyway.
that'll be the plot for the role-playing game.
Awesome.
Come on down here. We'll write up your characters, and
exactly. That's what I'm thinking.
Her microwave goes berserk, and all of these characters now have to solve the mystery of why they're all on.
Not to bring money into this, but those card games bring a good sum on Kickstarter. Maybe pay for us to make these comics that don't make no money.
There you go. But I got to go, guys. I could talk all night long. Thank you for Friday the 13th. Ooh, this was so scary. Ooh. But yeah, I'd love to. I kind of flourish in a one-on-one talk with people, but I'm really starting to enjoy having more people on. I kind of like when I go to a party, I find one person and talk to them until all the moisture leaves their body and they're just. But I'm starting to enjoy talking to groups of people.
John, you're reminding me of Count Floyd over there. You remember Count Floyd?
Floyd is back.
Oh, kids, it's scary stuff.
I was on a few other channels on a panel, and I was just like this. I don't do. But thanks a lot, guys. I got to go make another pot of coffee and stay. And if watch, I'm going to be on next with I can't think of her name. I'm sorry, but she has a comic called Pale Rider.
It is called the Path of the Pale Rider.
Path of the Pale. You see, he even knows what I'm doing better than me.
And let's see, her name is Lori Calcaterra.
There you go.
Cool.
I needed to look at my notes. I'm getting old. Yeah, so I'll be talking with her in 10 minutes. So I got to get going. Thank you, guys.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye-bye.